There are moments in life when the storm rises without warning, when the waves crash so hard you can barely breathe, and it feels like everything inside you is breaking apart. You look around and see no help, no escape, no light in sight. But I tell you today, stay calm. Do not panic. Do not let your heart be troubled. Because when you cannot fight anymore, when your strength is gone, that is when God steps in. That is when His power begins to move. The battle you face is not yours. It belongs to God. And when God fights, victory is not just possible. It is inevitable. There are seasons when life seems to mock your face. You pray and the heavens feel silent. You believe and yet the mountain doesn't move. You trust and yet you're still standing in the fire. But hear me, just because you can't see God working doesn't mean He's not working. God is not limited by what you see, feel, or understand. His power is not measured by your circumstances. The silence of God is never the absence of God. While you are waiting, God is working. While you are crying, God is planning. While you are worrying, God is positioning everything for your victory. Stay calm, for the unseen hand of God is arranging the outcome in your favor. When God tells you to be still, He's not telling you to do nothing. He's telling you to trust completely. He's saying, stop striving in your flesh. Stop trying to fix everything with your own wisdom. Stop fighting battles that belong to me. You see, many times we lose peace because we keep trying to control what only God can control. We keep trying to explain, to prove, to win, to defend ourselves, when all along God is saying, if you stay calm, I will show my power. The stillness of faith is louder than the noise of fear. The calm heart carries divine strength that no weapon can defeat. When you stand still in faith, you invite the hand of God to move in ways you could never imagine. Do not think your calmness is weakness. The calm person who trusts in God is stronger than the one who shouts in panic. Because calmness rooted in faith is power. When you remain calm in the middle of chaos, you are declaring God is in control. You are saying to the universe, no matter what comes against me, I will not be shaken because my defender is mighty. The calmness of faith is a shield that confusion cannot penetrate. It is the mark of someone who knows that victory is already written by God's hand. The greatest battles are not won by noise. They are won in the silence of trust. Think about it. When you stop reacting, you confuse your enemy. When you stop worrying, you frustrate every attack. Because panic is the weapon that darkness uses to make you forget who is with you. But when you remain calm, you remind darkness that you are not alone. You remind your troubles that there is a higher power watching, fighting, and guarding you. The calmness of your soul is your loudest declaration of faith. Some of you right now are standing before situations that seem impossible. Maybe it's a financial storm that keeps growing. Maybe it's a betrayal from someone you trusted. Maybe your health is failing, your relationships are crumbling, or your dreams seem to be dying. You've done everything you can. You prayed, you've walked, you've cried, and yet nothing seems to change. But listen, when you've done all you can do, that is when you stand still and let God take over. Do not confuse delay with defeat. Delay is often the ground where God builds your victory. Sometimes God holds you back not to punish you, but to protect you. He is not ignoring you. He is preparing you. What looks like a setback is often a setup for something greater than you can see. Stay calm. Because the moment you surrender the battle to God, you shift the outcome. God does not lose battles. God does not retreat. God does not fail. And when you let Him fight for you, no force can stand against you. He may not fight the way you expect Him to, but He will fight in a way that silences every enemy. He may not move when you want Him to, but when He moves, it will be perfect. Every plan formed against you will crumble when God steps in. Every tongue that rises against you will fall silent when God speaks. Every obstacle that tries to block you will turn into a testimony when God acts. You see, the reason the storm gets louder before victory comes is because darkness always screams loudest before it is defeated. The closer you get to breakthrough, the harder the attack becomes. But that is not the time to panic. That is the time to stay calm. Because the storm cannot stop what God has already decreed. The wind cannot blow away what God has planted. The waves cannot drown a person whom God has chosen to protect. Calmness is not the absence of emotion. It is the presence of divine trust. Many people pray for God to fight their battles, but they never give Him the space to fight. They pray, but then they take the battle back into their own hands. They say, God, I trust you. But then they worry all night. They say, God, I believe. But then they keep arguing, explaining, and defending themselves. True faith is silent confidence. True faith doesn't need to announce victory before it comes. It rests in the assurance that God has already decided the outcome. The person who truly trusts doesn't panic. They stand tall in peace while the world trembles around them, knowing that God's timing is always perfect. When you are calm, you give God permission to act. You show Him that you trust His plan more than your fear. The moment you stop reacting emotionally to everything, you begin to rise spiritually above everything. That is when divine favor begins to flow. God moves mightily for those who trust quietly. There is a kind of strength that is not visible to the human eye. It's the strength that comes from waiting with unshakable faith. That strength is not loud. It's steady. It doesn't shout. It stands firm. And that strength is what carries you from battle to victory. Remember this. Peace is not the absence of problems. It's the presence of God in the midst of them. Calmness doesn't mean you have no challenges. It means you have unshakable confidence in who is with you. Every time fear tries to rise, remind yourself God is still in control. Every time doubt tries to whisper, tell it God is still working. Every time enemies try to attack, say to yourself, this battle is not mine, it belongs to God. When you speak those words, you disarm the power of fear. You remove the authority of worry. Because fear cannot live where faith stands firm. There is a powerful thing that happens when you stay calm under pressure. You begin to see what others cannot see. Your vision clears. You stop reacting to the chaos and start perceiving divine patterns. You begin to recognize that what looked like a destruction is actually direction. You realize that every delay, every disappointment, every closed door was a part of God's divine strategy to lead you to something better. Calmness opens your spiritual eyes. Panic blinds them. When you stay calm, you align yourself with the wisdom of God. You move in harmony with His rhythm. You stop rushing and you start receiving. You cannot hear God's voice in noise. You cannot see His plan when your mind is full of anxiety. God speaks to the calm heart. He reveals Himself in stillness. That is why when storms come, the greatest act of faith is not to fight harder, but to be still. Because in that stillness, your spirit connects with God's power. And when your spirit aligns with God, miracles happen. What seemed impossible becomes possible. What seemed lost is restored. What seemed broken is healed. Because calmness is not passive, it's active, faith in motion. Sometimes God allows the battle to come, not to destroy you, but to display His glory through you. You are not fighting to survive. You are standing to witness what God can do. Your calmness becomes a testimony to others. People will look at you and wonder, how can you be so peaceful when everything is falling apart? And you will say, because I know who fights for me. That peace will draw others to faith. That calm spirit will inspire others to trust. You are not just fighting for your victory. You are demonstrating what trust in God truly looks like. The most dangerous enemy you face is not the one outside of you, it's the storm inside you. If the enemy can make you panic, he can make you lose focus. But if you stay calm, you win before the battle even begins. Because calmness gives you clarity, and clarity gives you control. Fear makes you blind, but faith keeps your eyes open. When you stay calm, you are unshakable. The storm may roar, but it cannot move you. Because you know God is bigger than this storm. You may feel surrounded right now, but remember, you are not surrounded by enemies. You are surrounded by God's presence. You may feel pressed on every side, but you are not crushed, because divine power is with you. And when God is with you, even in the middle of fire, you will not be burned. Even in the middle of floods, you will not drown. Even in the valley of darkness, light will find you. So stay calm. Lift your head. Do not let your spirit bend under pressure. You are being prepared for something greater. Sometimes God delays victory to strengthen your endurance. He allows the tension to rise so your faith can grow. Because without pressure, faith remains weak. Without struggle, trust stays shallow. God allows certain battles, not because He wants to hurt you, but because He wants to train you. Every challenge is a divine classroom. Every storm is a lesson in trust. Every silence is a test of your calmness. The person who can remain peaceful in chaos has already mastered spiritual power. There will come a day when you will look back and realize that what scared you the most was actually the path that led you to your greatest blessing. Every tear you cried became a seed that watered your faith. Every rejection became a redirection. Every obstacle became an opportunity for God to show His strength through you. So don't lose peace when things don't go your way. Sometimes God is protecting you from what you thought you wanted. Sometimes He removed what you thought you needed to give you something far better. Your calmness is proof that you trust His higher wisdom. Stay calm, because God has never failed to defend those who trust Him. The story of your life is not one of defeat, but of divine intervention. Every battle you faced was preparing you for the moment when you would no longer fight in your own strength, but rest in His. The calm soul is not lazy, it is powerful. Because calmness is the throne on which God's power sits. The more still you are in faith, the more active God becomes in your favor. When you learn to stay calm and let God fight your battles, you step into a realm where your emotions no longer control your destiny. You stop reacting to what people say, to what life throws at you, and you begin responding from a place of divine assurance. The moment you stop allowing external chaos to shake your inner peace, you begin to walk in a supernatural rhythm of trust, and that trust becomes your greatest weapon. God does not fight for those who panic. He fights for those who believe. Your calmness is your signal to heaven that you are ready for God to take over. There is a hidden power in a quiet spirit. The world teaches you to fight with words, to prove your worth, to retaliate against every offense. But God teaches you to be still, to rise above noise, to answer accusation with a silence. When you refuse to fight the way the world fights, you invite the Almighty to intervene in His way. And when He fights for you, He does not just silence your enemies. He transforms you in the process. He used the battle not just to show His strength, but to build your faith. That is why calmness in conflict is not weakness. It is wisdom born of a divine confidence. You must understand that not every battle requires your energy. Some battles are distractions meant to drain you before you reach your destiny. The enemy knows that if he can get you anxious, if he can get you worried, if he can make you defend yourself, he can pull you out of alignment with God's timing. That is why the greatest victory sometimes comes from saying nothing, doing nothing, and simply trusting. Because when you are calm, you are saying to the universe, God will speak for me. God will move for me. God will prove what I cannot. You stop needing to win the argument because you know that the truth does not need defense. It only needs time. And time is in God's hands. When you truly surrender your battles to God, you begin to experience a peace that human logic cannot explain. You wake up in the same storm, but the storm no longer controls your heart. You walk through the same valley, but fear no longer grips your soul. This peace is not something you earn. It is something God gives when you stop striving. It is the kind of peace that makes you strong when others are falling apart. It makes you steady when everything is shaking. It makes you victorious before the battle even ends. Because peace is not the result of victory. Peace is the foundation of victory. There will be moments when people will rise against you without cause. They will misjudge you, misunderstand you, and misrepresent your intentions. In those moments, the flesh will want to respond, to prove, to retaliate. But that is where faith must lead. God does not need your defense. He needs your trust. You may lose a few arguments, but you will never lose the battle when God is your defender. Every false word spoken against you will eventually collapse under the weight of divine truth. Every plan to harm you will become the very ground upon which you rise higher. Because God is not just watching, He is working. He sees every hidden plot, every whispered lie, every unfair situation, and He is already orchestrating your vindication. Sometimes God hides His hand to test your heart. He waits to see if you will still trust Him when you cannot trace Him. Will you stay calm when everything seems against you? Will you remain still when nothing makes sense? Because it is easy to have a faith when the seas are calm, but true faith is revealed when the waves rise. The calm soul in chaos becomes a testimony that shakes the spiritual realm. The one who stands in silence while others panic carries a power that cannot be seen but can be felt. And that power calls forth miracles. It opens doors that effort could never open. It turns impossibilities into pathways of blessing. You must realize that calmness is not the absence of strength. It is the full expression of strength under control. It is spiritual maturity to say, God, I do not understand, but I will not fear. I do not see the way, but I know you have already made one. I will not let my emotion drive me. I will let my faith guide me. This kind of faith provokes the movement of heaven because God is drawn to those who trust Him in silence. He delights in those who wait without complaining, who stand firm without wavering, who believe without seeing. Every time you refuse to panic, you are saying to God, I trust your wisdom more than my fear. When you let God fight your battles, your enemies lose power over you. They cannot manipulate your peace. They cannot control your reaction. They cannot understand how you are still standing. And that confuses them because the world expects you to break when things fall apart. But God's people do not break, they rise. They rise not because life is easy, but because their confidence is in a power far greater than themselves. The storms of life do not drown them, they cleanse them. The fire does not consume them, it refines them. Because God turns every battle into a blessing when you refuse to fight it in your own strength. You are not meant to fight everything that comes your way. Some battles are divine tests, not meant to destroy you, but to elevate you. The calm spirit passes the test. The restless one prolongs it. Every time you lose peace, you step out of alignment with the divine timing. But when you stay calm, you remain in the flow of God's plan. You begin to sense His movement, even in silence. You begin to feel His protection, even when surrounded. You begin to see His purpose, even in pain. Calmness allows revelation to enter your heart. Panic shuts it out. That is why your greatest weapon in this life is not your voice, not your might, not your intellect, but your peace. There is a deep secret in spiritual warfare. Silence is sometimes the loudest sound in heaven. When you refuse to respond to evil with the evil, heaven fights on your behalf. When you stop explaining yourself and choose stillness, God's justice begins to speak louder than any human voice. When you hold your peace, you become untouchable. Because the moment you stay calm in faith, you declare that your source of strength is not found in this world. It comes from God alone. And that declaration shakes the unseen world. It tells every force of darkness that their time is over, their influence broken, their schemes exposed. You will never lose anything by trusting God completely, but you will lose peace every time you try to fight without Him. God never fails to defend those who rest in Him. You might not see immediate results, but the results will come in a way that leaves no doubt this was the hand of God. He will do it so perfectly that even your enemies will have to acknowledge His power. He will restore your reputation, your peace, your joy, your strength, not through your arguments, but through His intervention. So stop exhausting your spirit with worry. Every battle you surrender becomes a miracle in progress. Every problem you place in God's hands turns from burden to blessing. The calm heart can see opportunities in crisis. When everyone else is panicking, the calm soul listens to divine whispers. God often gives direction to those who are quiet enough to hear. The moment you calm your heart, inspiration begins to flow. Solutions come. Ideas are born. Doors appear that were once invisible because peace clears the fog that fear creates. When you are calm, you can see the path God laid out for you long before the storm began. The storm does not change your destiny. It simply reveals it. Some of you have been fighting battles in your mind. Battles of worry, of anxiety, of fear, of uncertainty. You have been trying to predict how things will unfold, trying to control outcomes that are not yours to control. But God is saying, be still. Stop carrying what I already took responsibility for. Stop trying to fix what only I can repair. Stop worrying about what is beyond your reach, because I have already gone ahead of you. Every sleepless night you spend in fear is wasted energy. God does not need your anxiety. He needs your agreement. He needs you to agree with His promise, even when you cannot see the process. There is a time to act and a time to stand still. Wisdom is knowing which is which. When God tells you to stay calm, He is not calling you to inactivity. He is calling you to spiritual positioning. He is saying, stand where I placed you, and I will bring the victory to you. That kind of trust can only come from someone who knows that God is faithful. You may not understand how He will do it, but you know that He will. And that knowing becomes your anchor in the storm. Calmness becomes your armor, and faith becomes your sword. The winds may roll, but they cannot move what is anchored in divine trust. Your calmness is not for you alone. It's a signal to those watching your life. People around you are watching how you handle difficulty. They are listening to your reaction, observing your peace. When you stay calm, you are teaching others how to trust God. You are showing them that it's possible to face fire and not burn, to walk through darkness and not lose hope. You become a living message of divine power. The calmness you carry becomes a light in a world filled with noise. Your peace becomes a sermon louder than any words could preach. Do not mistake stillness for stagnation. Just because you are not moving doesn't mean God isn't. Just because you are waiting doesn't mean nothing is happening. The greatest moves of God often begin in silence. Seeds grow underground before they break through the surface. The most beautiful transformations happen out of sight before they are revealed. So stay calm, let patience have its perfect work. The roots of your faith are deepening while you wait. And when the time is right, God will bring forth fruit so abundant that you will forget the pain of the process. Every battle has an appointed end. No storm lasts forever. No darkness can hold back the morning that God has ordained. The same God who brought you this far will carry you further. The same hand that protected you yesterday will protect you today. The same power that opened the way before will open it again. Stay calm, because the story is not over. The moment you think is finished is often the moment God begins to write the next chapter. What looks like an ending is often a beginning in disguise. Calmness keeps you aligned with the rhythm of divine timing. When you rush, you step outside of it. When you worry, you interrupt it. But when you stay calm, you flow with it. You begin to walk in sync with the pace of destiny. You stop forcing doors and start walking through the ones that open naturally. You stop chasing people and start attracting what belongs to you. Because peace magnetizes blessings. Calmness draws opportunities. Stillness creates space for miracles. And God moves freely where there is trust. There is no greater act of worship than staying calm in the face of uncertainty. It is your way of saying, God, I may not see the full picture, but I trust the painter. It is your declaration that faith is greater than fear. You are not pretending that everything is perfect. You are declaring that even in imperfection, God's plan is flawless. And that kind of trust, that kind of calmness releases power. It opens heaven's gates over your life. It shifts atmospheres. It invites breakthroughs that human effort could never achieve. When you decide to stay calm and let God fight your battles, you are choosing faith over fear, wisdom over impulse, and destiny over distraction. Calmness is not simply a lack of movement. It is a posture of the spirit, a divine position of trust. It is the quiet strength of a heart that says, even if everything around me falls apart, I will not crumble because I know who holds my life. The calm person in the middle of the storm is not ordinary. They are spiritually anchored. They have seen enough of God's faithfulness to know that panic never wins, but patience always does. Every storm has a purpose, and every battle carries a lesson. Sometimes the reason God allows the battle to rise higher is not because He wants to break you, but because He wants to elevate you. The fire reveals what was hidden in you, the strengths you didn't know you had, the faith you didn't know was built, the courage you didn't know existed. And through that fire, God refines you. He removes the fear that kept you small, the doubt that made you hesitate, and the pride that made you rely on yourself. What feels like a battle is often the birth of a higher version of you. So stay calm, because the pain you feel now is the preparation for the power you will carry later. God does not waste a single struggle. Every hardship has meaning in its divine design. The moment you realize that even chaos is under God's command, fear loses its power over you. The waves that once terrified you become the very waves that carry you forward. When you understand that everything moves under divine permission, your heart begins to rest. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And you start saying, God, what are you teaching me through this? That shift in perspective is where peace begins. Calmness is born when you trust that nothing enters your life without purpose and nothing leaves your life without reason. There are people who look calm because they've given up. But the calmness of faith is different. It's not resignation, it's revelation. It's the knowing that God has already decided the outcome, and therefore you don't have to fight for control. It's realizing that even if everything looks uncertain, God's plan is never uncertain. Even if the road looks blocked, His timing is still perfect. Calmness saying, I may not understand what's happening, but I understand who is in charge. And when you understand that, your spirit begins to glow with a quiet strength. Many times, we mistake our responsibility for God's responsibility. We think we must fix every problem, respond to every attack, and defend ourselves in every situation. But when you mature in faith, you realize that not everything requires your reaction. Some battles are God's way of saying, stand back and watch what I will do. When you stop interfering, God starts intervening. When you stop striving, God starts moving. Sometimes your silence speaks louder than your defense. The one who stays calm in the storm often becomes the vessel through which God reveals His greatness. There are moments when God will strip away your ability to fight in your own power, not to make you weak, but to remind you that strength without Him is an illusion. You will reach a point where your wisdom runs out, your strength fails, your strategies collapse, and that is the moment God shows you that His power has no limit. When your strength ends, His begins. When your hands fall, His hands lift you. The calm soul is not the one without struggle. It is the one that knows where to place its struggle. You can fight in fear or rest in faith, but you cannot do both. Every time you choose calmness, you are choosing to let God lead. You are saying, my emotions will not be my master, God will. That decision changes everything. It transforms the way you speak, the way you think, the way you respond. Calmness makes you spiritually untouchable because peace is protection. Anxiety opens doors. Peace closes them. When your heart is calm, negativity cannot find a home in you. Fear may knock, but it cannot enter. The calm soul becomes a fortress surrounded by divine light. The enemy cannot penetrate it, and the world cannot shake it. Your calmness is a reflection of your faith in the unseen. It is the invisible shield that covers you when life becomes unbearable. The calm heart knows that God's timing is never late, even when human timing says it is. You see, panic is a declaration that you believe the problem is bigger than God. But calmness is the declaration that nothing can stand against the one who commands the heavens. When you are calm, you are not ignoring the battle. You are inviting divine power to take control. You are saying, God, you see more than I see. You know more than I know, and I trust you completely. God has a mysterious way of working through stillness. Sometimes, before He brings you victory, He will first bring silence. That silence is not emptiness, it's sacred preparation. God does His deepest work in quiet seasons. When everything slows down and it feels like nothing is happening, He is rebuilding you in secret. He is aligning the people, the opportunities, and the circumstances that will move you into your next season. But He will only reveal it when your heart is calm enough to receive it, because peace is the soil in which divine revelation grows. So if you are in a season where it seems like nothing is moving, stay calm. God is not asleep. He is watching, calculating, arranging. He is fighting for you in ways you cannot see. Do not mistake divine silence for divine absence. God may be quiet, but He is never still. The quiet is where He sharpens your patience, strengthens your faith, and stretches your understanding. He is teaching you to trust the process when the plan is hidden. When you stay calm in uncertainty, you show that your faith is rooted not in outcomes, but in the character of God Himself. One of the greatest gifts you can ever give yourself is to stop rushing God. Many people lose peace because they try to force what only God can unfold. They push doors that aren't ready to open, chase people who aren't meant to stay, and cling to situations that are meant to change. But when you stay calm, you allow divine timing to do its perfect work. You learn that what's meant for you will never pass you by. You begin to understand that God's delays are never denials, they are divine reorganization. The longer you wait in calm trust, the greater the reward when it comes. Because waiting with peace attracts what impatience drives away. Calmness is the atmosphere where miracles are born. You cannot manifest the divine results with a restless heart. The seed of faith only grows in the soil of peace. That's why when your mind is troubled, the first thing God says is, be still. He does not begin by changing the situation. He begins by changing your state of mind. Because once peace is established within, power can move without. The calm person becomes a magnet for divine intervention. The moment you surrender your worry, you create space for God's wisdom to operate. Never let the noise of the world steal the stillness of your spirit. The world will try to make you hurry, react, prove, and panic, but the more you do, the further you drift from divine alignment. The calm soul walks at God's pace, not the world. The calm soul knows that what is meant to arrive cannot be delayed, and what is meant to live cannot be kept. You are not missing out when you wait in faith. You are positioning yourself for something eternal. Those who remain calm while others rush are often the ones who receive blessings that others overlook. You may look around and see people prospering who did not walk the same path of faith as you. Do not let that disturb your peace. Calmness says, I will not compare my season with another's. God's timing is unique for each soul. What He is preparing for you requires precision, and precision takes time. When you are calm, you allow that preparation to finish. You refuse to settle for temporary satisfaction when eternal glory is being built. You choose to wait with the peace rather than rush with the regret. And in that waiting, you become a vessel ready for fullness. The calm person understands that peace is not passive, it is power under control. It's knowing you could panic but choosing not to. You could react but choosing restraint. You could fear but choosing faith. That discipline makes you unstoppable, because the person who rules their spirit is mightier than one who conquers a city. When you can command your emotions in the face of chaos, you have already conquered the battlefield of the mind. And once you win there, everything else falls into alignment. Sometimes calmness is not about staying still. It's about moving slowly with clarity. It's walking forward one step at a time without fear, without rushing. God often gives direction little by little, not all at once. And if your heart is restless, you will miss those small instructions. But the calm spirit catches every whisper. It senses every divine nudge. It walks with grace and assurance. Never ahead of God, never behind Him. Calmness keeps you synchronized with His rhythm. The day you stop letting fear dictate your reactions is the day you begin to walk in divine authority. You stop being a victim of life and become a vessel of divine strength. You stop reacting to storms and start commanding peace. Because peace is not weakness, it is the mark of divine maturity. It means you have learned to trust more than you worry, to rest more than you rush, to believe more than you doubt. That is where true spiritual power lives.